It's Blueies and Chewies. Pooch here with you to talk through this last weekend's incredible rugby championship games and results. We've seen the Wallabies take New Zealand to the last couple of minutes of the Bledisloe Cup, and we've seen the lost Pumas fight back from a very quick start by the Springboks to claim a huge victory for them at home, which gives them a little bit of a sniff of what would be a historic result if they could turn the tide in Nelspruit. Don't think it will happen, but what a game that was. I'll actually lead with the Bledisloe Cup, given that was the first game this weekend. And the build-up to the game, we saw a lot of unbelievable test matches during the Tri Nations against Australia and New Zealand. In the lead up to the game, they showed some of the highlights of the game of the century. At least it was dubbed then, where New Zealand got off to a really quick start. Australia fought back, and a couple of points in it, only for Jonah Lomu to score in the corner in Sydney to break Australian hearts. And it was sort of the strong sense of nostalgia, because I remember back then getting up early, watching games at really awkward times to see phenomenal Super Rugby tournament that was happening at the time, and to see a highly competitive Tri Nations. Again, New Zealand probably setting the benchmark in World Rugby, but Australia with a phenomenal team. You know, really good players, world-class players littered all over the pitch. And unfortunately, to see the decline over these handful of years, it's been a long time coming. Certainly anyone across the game on the ground here in Australia, the game is losing the battle of the codes against Australian rugby league and Australian rules, AFL and NRL. However, by hook or crook, the Wallabies made a game of it. Now, I'm no expert in rugby. I'd like to think I can, with my amateurish eyes, survey a game and give you some decent takes and decent insight. And I think, you know, for most people, probably recognize there's probably two main styles of defense that you can implement. There's the rush defense, which the Springboks have really mastered and probably led the way in the quality and accuracy in delivering a highly difficult defense to penetrate. And then there's really a drift defense, which is more commonplace, where you'll obviously drift as the ball is thrown down the line, watching your man and keeping a man on man, again, making it difficult to get around the edges as you shift with the ball. Australia's defense in that first half was neither of those. Could only be described as passive. That's probably a nice way of framing it. Who on earth has control of that defense? You should have been on the field 15 minutes into that game coaching those guys, because they looked like a under 15 C team against the All Blacks. They were diabolical. They had no idea. They looked gassed after 10, 15 minutes as a team. They didn't push up against the ball. And New Zealand, by no intricate, dynamic play, spread the ball down the wing. And Caleb Clark or Sevu Reece or Will Jordan seemed to be able to walk the ball in at a canter. I mean, I just couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. Now, by complete lack of execution, there must have been 3 knock-ons in failed try attempts, 1 or 2 forward passes, a ball held up over the line. I think, if someone could remind me, was there 5 or 6 tries disallowed by New Zealand? So by hook or crook, Australia somehow broke away and got a try, then somehow found their way into the game and looked at times like they were going to create some momentum. And by poor line-out, knock-ons, breakdown steals by New Zealand, they could not gain any momentum. I mean, I hate to pick on a player, but I dare say that Noah Loasio, he does kick well for poles, which naturally, as Springboks found out, is a critical part of the job as a fly half. But honestly, he looks like a 12-year-old boy against big boys out there, and he looks afraid to tackle. A couple of standout players I thought for Australia, I must say, was Harry Wilson. He made 21 tackles, not one missed tackle. I still think he's got a couple of years to go. When he first came to the fore in the Wallabies team during those COVID years, he was playing for the Reds, and he seemed to really be dynamic. I think he was injured last year. So he seems like he's really got strong potential, the number 8. But actually, I think the true hero was Fraser McWright. What a player. He showed some really good performances, and I did say in my preview of the game that I like the forward pack for Australia. They did all right, actually, but I must say Fraser McWright was everywhere. It was a warm day in Sydney, not quite the conditions in Argentina, but it was not an easy day out there in terms of playing the volume of minutes that he did. His try, his nuisance and effort at the breakdown, his hits in the tackle, he missed one tackle. I think he made 17 or 18 tackles. He was phenomenal, and he may be the long-term successor to Michael Hooper. I think he is Australia's new Hooper. What a play. He plays well above his pay station in terms of size. I thought he was terrific. Certainly looks like he has bulked up a bit. And one player that does look like he's bulked up even more was Angus Bell, and I'm a big Angus Bell fan. I think he's got the potential to be one of the best front rowers in the game, but he looks too big. He doesn't look like he's as mobile or versatile to get around the pitch, so should be interested to see how the Wallabies go for the end of the year and whether we see a change in body makeup by some of these players. Certainly Fraser McWright is on the smaller side of a loose forward trio. Angus Bell's a naturally big boy, and he looked like he was carrying a fair bit of muscle in that game, and I thought he found it difficult to get around the pitch, which is certainly a key part of why I really like him. I think he's that modern day prop, versatile, able to get around, good at the breakdown, good scrummager. But I thought he looked really heavy and gasping for breath in that first 10, 15 minutes when Australia were just conceding tries at a canter. Caleb Clark picked one out of the air. And to be fair, I don't think I gave him his due flowers against the Springboks, because I did think the tries that he scored, he should have scored. However, he did have a good game in the air at Ellis Park, and he nipped an absolute beauty off the sky, I think, in the first half. And fair dues, he's took a lot of criticism. He came in with a lot of hype, given his size, given the history that New Zealand have with big wingers. First superstar of the game, of course, in Jonah Lomu. And he had to go back and actually work on his game. And to be fair, he looks like he's really improved a fair amount. Does that mean we'll see Will Jordan at fullback long term? On Will Jordan, I mean, he looked good against Australia. Is that a reflection, though, on his capability? I mean, he is a world-class talent. But as I said previously in the Springbok series, so he's failed to deliver in the last 4 or 5 games against the Springboks. So, does he take advantage of really poor teams and slice poor defences up in half? And does he struggle against those, the top 3, 4 teams in the world? That's one to watch. Let me know your thoughts on Will Jordan. His undoubted talent. He's a world-class talent without any question. But, I thought he would have demanded the ball more against Springboks. There wasn't any sort of magical plays or moments of brilliance. And he really struggled to impose himself. Scrum half and fly half combination, again, is a huge concern for Australia. I mean, Lower CO's had a good handful of games now between Wales, pre-Rugby Championship, now the Rugby Championship, since Joe Schmidt's come in. Obviously, Eddie Jones seemed to earmark Carter Gordon, the long locks that we saw at the World Cup. Again, he had a bit of a tough ride, albeit, everyone's going to struggle in an underperforming team. But a young chap, they've obviously lost him to Rugby League. Again, a clear example of where rugby union is losing that battle in Australia, albeit we will see Joseph Suali at the end of the year, so that should be pretty exciting. However, between Nick White and Noah Loacio, I think Australia are desperate for further options, and I really think they should be trialing different combinations. As for New Zealand, Dwight texted me saying this could be 100, and I was fully on board with that. They looked like they were going to put a huge number on the Wallabies. And yes, they did win, but they've won with the same combinations, certainly in the back line, at centre, at fly half. We didn't see anything different. That was, for me, a really missed opportunity by Razor to really look at a couple of different players in a big game, but against a weak opposition. Right? Rugby journalist Ben Smith in New Zealand, who loves to wind up South Africans, said that Australia are their greatest foe. Let's be real, a rivalry is a rivalry because they're tight. Now, that game ended up a lot tighter than it should be, purely on the basis that Australia gained some momentum in that second half off the back of poor execution by New Zealand. It was a lost opportunity for me. I know we keep speaking about continuity, Razor, but there has been continuity under Fozzie. It didn't work. They had a good World Cup, but it hasn't looked terrific since. And that was a real opportunity ahead of a tough Northern Hemisphere tour to really trial some new combinations. And I think Australia are still looking for stability in their back line, not only at 9 and 10, but Australia, I dare say, look actually better up front than they do in the back line. There's moments of brilliance from some players, but really lack of consistency and cohesion across the back line, not only at 9 and 10. So I think Joe Schmidt has a real challenge on his hands over the next 6 months in the lead up to the British and Irish Lions to find some stability, find better combinations that are really going to trouble the Lions. Because Ben Youngs, the English scrum half, noted that the Lions were better off travelling to South Africa, which I do agree as far as the spectacle. We don't want to see 3 whitewash, one-sided games. So Joe has very limited time to turn this around. He's the best man for it. God almighty, they've got to fix that defence. Now on to the Springboks, who got a taste of their own medicine. A tough one to take, losing at the death to Argentina after Mani Lebok missed really a kickable goal. He should have kicked that with his eyes closed. We've seen Rassie make big decisions or certain plays. He stuck with Mani through the World Cup despite the growing concerns of his kicking ability. He nailed one earlier in the game that was much tougher kick. I'm sure everyone was watching the same footage, but the camera was behind the poles, a little bit left of centre. That's a easily slottable kick. And as soon as it came off his boot, you knew he had missed it. He had pulled it. I really like Mani Lebok. John Dobson speaks glowingly of his ability to put mistakes behind him and forget them. That's a big strength of any sports athlete. But the reality is, if the Jordan Hendrickses and the like, who kicked a massive goal for the Sharks against the Lions in the Currie Cup, are equally dynamic going forward and far more dependable from the kicking tee. Manie Lebok may have limited opportunities in a Springbok jersey moving forward. I hope I'm wrong. He fizzes a pass like very few Springbok flying halves are able to do. And so I really like him from an attacking point of view. The Springboks got off to an incredible start. It is so hard to analyze, take away from this game, given the conditions. It reminded me a bit of the Football World Cup in Brazil several years ago. I remember watching a game between Italy and England, and the players were drenched. Their shirts were practically see-through with sweat after 15, 20 minutes, given the humidity. Those were really unique, difficult, and challenging conditions in a brutal collision-based game. So I'm conscious of not being too critical on the Springboks, who looked phenomenal in those first 10, 12 minutes. Again, talking about execution, the fizz pass by Pollard for the first try for Fassi, Creel getting under the poles, Reinach taking advantage of the quick tap penalty. We really, really look good. Any Argentinian team before could have easily down tools and conceded 40. I mean, it's quite similar games where it looked like one team was going to run away with a victory, and it turned out to be quite a close game in the end. Well, a very close game in this count. I don't want to be too critical about the Springboks because the conditions were so unique. It's not something that we've seen very often before, if ever. And what I would have liked to have seen after that fast start, getting 17 points in, is when we did have the ball, slowing down the pace of the game, trying to bring in more set plays to give the guys a bit of rest. I would have liked to have seen Reinach take a little bit more control of the game, but just trying to play that fast tempo in those conditions and then conceding quick tries, we really needed to stop the bleeding as quickly as possible. But ultimately, we need to doff our caps to Felipe Contepomi and Los Pumas. They were highly clinical. They seemed to be able to get around the edges with ease, with really good interplay in the back line. Is this a new age of Argentinian rugby? Are we going to see a highly, highly competitive Argentinian team moving forward for the Rugby Championship? Because it would make the tournament unbelievable if that's the case. Because with Australia falling away, if New Zealand and South Africa had easy wins against Australia and Argentina, it takes away from the value of the tournament. So if Australia are on a bit of a rebuild, and we're seeing the quality of this Argentinian team moving forward, one that is not just based on a strong scrummage lineup, which again, I don't think they're anywhere near where they used to be many years ago. No, man, have they got some exciting backline talent mixed with brawn up front. They were highly deserving of that win. And while South Africa, after an unbelievable line-out steal by, I think it was the big man himself, Eben Etzebeth, which gave us the chance to win the game at the death and get away with another narrow win, they were highly deserving of that win. So congratulations to the Los Pumas. Down to Nelspruit we go. I think we'll see a big, big reaction from the Springboks as they look to take the Rugby Championship in epic fashion away from Argentina. The last time we were down in Nelspruit, we saw phenomenal scenes as South Africa beat New Zealand. It looks like an unbelievable stadium. There'll be strong, patriotic, partisan crowd. Should be a terrific game. But I tell you what, said it before, Argentina had 3% chance of winning this rugby championship. It might be up to about 15 now. And credit to them. Give credit where it's due. Thought South Africa could have been a bit tighter. But both teams have to play in those conditions. It doesn't favour one team over the other. And Argentina, the ability to what looked like down tools after 17 minutes and hit back in that fashion and win the game in the end, credit to them. That's it for Blueies and Shoeies. I look forward to reconnecting in the preview to the next set of games. Cheers, everyone.